All right, well, I guess we're going to get started. Um, so I told you guys we'd probably just do a review, and that's exactly what we're going to do. This had no lesson title, so I made a title myself. It's just called "It Doesn't Stop Here." Um, Obviously, I hope everything we've talked about has been beneficial for us. I think it definitely has for me. Um, Continue to talk with each other and discuss ways you get through hard times with our children or successes, joys. Share those things. We need to share those things as parents, so we all know we're going through similar things and can share those similar joys. A lot of this stuff, again, you've already seen, and some of it we'll expound upon a little bit more. So first and foremost, parenting is a journey with seasons. We know this. We have early years, teen years, and even into adulthood. I think even as adults, we've probably experienced some measure or level of encouragement, maybe even correction at times from our parents when they bring up something in our adult years, or maybe we've gone to our parents for advice, or hey, what did you do with this, or was this my fault or my sister's fault that my kids are, whoever's fault it is, or my wife's fault, whatever. Whose personality traits did they get, and how do I handle this? Um, so we may lean on our parents, and our kids may lean on us. But the common thread in all this is that our children need Christ at the center, coming from Colossians 2 6 through 7. So then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live your lives in Him, rooted and built up in Him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness. This same rooted nature, of course, not only applies to children, but it applies to the parents. It applies that they see this in their parents, which we've already discussed as well. Talked about knowing our child's heart. Beyond behavior, what drives their desires, their fears, what motivates them. We can't know these things unless we spend time, quality time with our children and talk to them about things. We also talked about how so important that we have early impressions upon them. So train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will depart from it. We see two stages of life. Train up the what? Not the adult, not the teenager, the child, the youth. That is the time when it's most impressionable, so that this carries on throughout their life. We must model faith in everyday life. Children learn more from what we live or how we live than what we say. So we must, of course, make Christ part of normal family conversations. It's not some taboo thing. It's open discussion. Deuteronomy 6, 6 through 9, we have almost carried this throughout the entirety of this course. But I just think there's so much to be said in that verse, so I'll read it one last time. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk, when you lie down, when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. So, hopefully what we can take from this is that this is a living, breathing part. He is every day, or in our everyday, and in our everyday conversation, in our everyday example. Got to start over now. Discipline with love and purpose. Are we doing discipline just for punishment only, or is it a training toward holiness? Hopefully, it is the training toward holiness. And this discipline, hopefully, the goal of that is to shape the child's will. From that youth moving forward, that they understand why we did what we did. They understand their why, because we spent that time and that effort into doing so. Hebrews 12, 10 through 11. For they disciplined us for a short time as it seemed best to them. But he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. That initial discipline is not always easy. I'm sure we've all experienced that level of, we made a commitment to discipline our child, maybe physically. Maybe that was in the car ride on the way home, and then you get home and you're like, oh, they've sweetened up. Do I really have to spank that little bottom? Or whatever the case may be. But we have to remember that even though it's hard in the moment, this is producing a fruit in the future. We need to stay connected even when they pull away. Not going to read this whole story. We're all familiar with the story of the prodigal son. This may particularly apply to teens, those who are dealing with teens, who will be dealing with teens in the future. Just know that they may wonder emotionally or even spiritually. We cannot give up on them. I can't tell you how many times we'd rather just give up on them because how exhausting that may be. But that story of the prodigal son, that father, what did that father do? Well, he watched, he waited, and when the time came, when that son came back, he welcomed and even rejoiced. So we can't give up on them when they go through these things. Actually, when they go through these things is when they need us the most. This is when we need to be the most engaged. And don't ever hesitate to reach out to other teen parents or parents who have gone through the teenage years. I know we pick on John and Kim a lot. Daphne and I reached out to them for a couple things going through the teen years because we felt like they kind of just went through John not too long ago. They might have some fresh insight as to things that we might consider. It was very helpful for us. Lean on others who have gone through this and see what advice they might be able to give you. It seems there's, I don't want to downplay elders by any means, but it does seem there's a gap there sometimes with elders, older men who their teens have been gone for 20 years or whatever. They might not have that quick recollection of what the experience was. They may just say, "Oh, it was hard and we got through it." Might be able to get a little bit better idea from someone who's fresh. So don't feel embarrassed to lean out. What you're going to find is everybody goes through something. Everybody goes through something. We're not going to judge each other for what you're having to deal with. I say all these things, and by the way, all these things are a work in progress. Balance, guidance, and independence. We talked about the balance of parenting. Encourage responsibility while reminding them of God's truth. We know not to exasperate, but to provide a steady anchor. From Ephesians 6:4, fathers, do not provoke or exasperate your child to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. How do you think parents can encourage responsibility and decision making without pushing their children away? What are some things you might could think of?
Maybe I just think you have to start that young. I don't think it has to. It's just a gradual growing with them as they grow. I think. I don't know. I'm just thinking back.
Like I was thinking, like including them in stuff where they can make decisions. Because there's some things that kids can't have a say in, but where they can. No, I'm sorry, I got but like it's like she said, starting when they're young, giving them little bits of respect, because we're just now a little bit behind trying to find things Amelia could do at the house to help us, but like giving them little things and then just building on that. So it's kind of like seamless almost in a way, because it's just something that's in there. Does that make sense? Like they're just used to having things that they're responsible for, or like being used to being part of certain things.
here's food for thought. I'll give you a great example. You know, we're trying to do better about Tate with responsibility, and Tate loves to weed eat. He'll volunteer to weed eat, and I love it. He's like, "Can I weed eat?" Yeah, sure, go weed eat. Absolutely. He does a terrible job. He doesn't weed eat any of the yard right. He makes it all the way around the yard, and I look, I'm like, there's not one thing that's actually been weed eated. He just holds the thing down and runs around. I appreciate, you know, that he has the desire. It is a responsibility. It's a chore. So it's almost hard to come back to him and be like, I appreciate you walking around the yard for 30 minutes, wasting my gas, but you got to do this the right way. So we're going to take a little bit more time and go over this, right? So that they understand that it's not just making the lap, but doing it right.
That's a balance. I mean, it really is. You know, try not to discourage, but you know what you're doing is good. But can I show you maybe an easier way or whatever? You know, that's tough.
It is, and a lot of times, what we can get in the danger field of is, since we know that kid's so bad at something, we're just like, no, I'm gonna do that. I'll take care of that.
Right.
You do a terrible job at it.
You don't put the dishwasher the way I want you to.
Yeah. Yeah. So we never give them the opportunity to actually improve on those chore skills. Yeah. So again, we can read this, we can say it easily, but putting it to practice is difficult.
Just going ahead on that is, you know, Jonathan, opposites work well together. So Jonathan is very patient. You know, in the kitchen, he allows the kids to do things with him. You know, they actually nurture that want to do things. Me? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and it truly is, I think, God's very smart, as everybody knows. He knows it's not just for them.
Yeah.
It is a teaching
Yep.
moment for me as well.
Yep.
And you know, they teach you as much as you need.
Yep. We're actually going to see that in some future slides, so it's good that you bring that up. All right. We know this, but crucial, so important. Keep pointing to Christ as their identity, especially, again, once we get into the teen years. Your teens might wrestle with that question of, you know, who am I? And we do need to help them see themselves first as God's child. Galatians 2:20 says, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I got so deep into the weeds with this thought, and we don't have enough time to even talk about it, but I kind of got off on this mental thought path, and again, this is just off the cuff. Don't read too much into this. I haven't finished it yet. But that thought of like, it's almost a sense of like a loan, right? They are our children. We bring them in the world, but that's only by design of God. That is only by His love and mercy and grace and all these things, and His choice to say, I entrust you with this child for the next X amount of years. But at some point, they're going to decide to give themselves to God, at which point He adopts them back. He adopts them back into His house, His name. And I kind of got a little bit deep in the weeds on like, you know, what is the real purpose and intent of me being a parent? Is it, at that point, am I just saying, I've done my best, God, and they chose you now, take care of them? That doesn't mean that I'm not going to take care of them as a parent, but it's almost like this sense of a loan for a span of time that God has entrusted me with this, and now I've got to give it back to God. That doesn't mean we give up, but it was again just this rabbit hole train thought I kind of went down. Like, is it just these 18 years that are so crucial? 18 years. and I can't just give up after that though. Even when they choose God, I'm always going to be checking on them, right?
Well, that's the same as us. I mean, we're adults, but we still have to have accountability and people to check up on us. And I don't know, it's just example and continue to encourage. I think is a big part of that. Even we're not going to get it right. We're much older.
Yeah.
When I think of answering that question, and I know you can't really explain this to a child under a certain age when they've not gone through basic biology and the strongest swimmer wins kind of thing.
Yeah.
Think of all the millions of options that happen there, and you're the product of how
Yeah.
all that happens. Just think of, like, it could be a completely different child, or, I mean, when you think about the design all the way down to the cellular level of that, it shows you how special it is and how just, it blows my mind when you think about all the other possibilities of how your child could be, but this is the one that you were supposed to have. And I don't see how there's any other way that it can be explained.
Yeah.
In the scientific realm, besides, having the creator behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can get some deep weed thoughts there, but that is a good one to consider.
It's a good point. You talk about no kids are the same. You explain that your scenario to the first kid. This is who you are, but your sibling is this. You are very unique. You came from the same parents, but with the differences.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you came from the same parents. You seem a little out there, Doug. All right. So this next section, and I'll slow down a little bit for some thought questions, but this was actually my divider for Wednesday night. I titled it "Blessing or Burden," because as I was thinking about just parenting, everything we've talked about, we've actually discussed a lot of burdens, a lot of things that can be stressors, a lot of things that are difficult to get through. But as Natalie was saying, we're going to see some things that through these children, how we haven't only benefited them, but how they've benefited us, and the blessings in that relationship. So I thought this might be a good way to end the course with thinking on this question. Do we really want to think of these moments as burdens, or are they blessings? So, this is the challenge. Parenting is one of the greatest responsibilities God entrusts to us. It is both weighty, meaning souls are at stake, and wonderful, which means we see God's grace unfold in our home. Psalm 127, 3-5, children are a heritage from the Lord. They are entrusted to us. We do not own them. They are the Lord's, but they are entrusted to us. We know we are shaping, we talked about shaping them. We are shaping eternal souls even, Matthew 19:14. Every interaction influences their faith journey. Every interaction. That also means every time we disregard them, every time we ignore them, every time we choose something that's not important at the time over acknowledging them. Those things also influence them. And that's a hard thought. Guilty as charged, I may be thinking about fixing a piece of equipment like a vehicle. A lot of times I'll watch a YouTube video just to refresh my mind or even learn how to do it. Thatcher loves to ask questions about what I'm watching. Loves to ask questions about, can I do that? And I've caught myself being like, hey, just hang on, buddy, stop. Now, how hard is it for me to just put pause?
Yeah.
The YouTube video is there forever. But I catch myself in things, or maybe in something that's not even that important. What if it's a card game you're playing on your phone and they're asking you questions and you're like, just hang on a second, I'm playing this card game. And then after that you're like, man, what am I doing? This is silly. I'm ignoring my kids over something so silly. Those interactions influence them as well. So we have to think about how we're being watched, how we're being listened to, because all the things we are doing, all the things we are saying is what's registering in that little brain. And that's what's going to shape them in the future, because they're going to do some of these habits that we do, whether those are good or bad. Saying that, we know we're not always going to get it right. We've already talked about we will not parent perfectly. It's been at the bottom of every slide almost since the beginning of our class. But we can parent purposely. So when we don't parent perfectly, when we mess it up, because we all stumble, we have to know that that failure does not disqualify us as a parent. It does not disqualify the kid being able to overcome these things or do better than us in the future. It doesn't disqualify that. It is going to show them, if we admit to it, it's going to show them that we get things wrong, we need to be humbled, but we also are going to show you that there's a way out of this. There's a way that God gives us grace and mercy. He gave me grace and mercy in my spiritual life. He gives me grace and mercy as a parent. He's going to give you grace and mercy as a child. So kids, I think it is important for kids to see that parents are not perfect. I think it can help their faith, as long as we talk about those things. This is touching more on where Natalie was reaching a while ago. Parenting refines us. God uses our kids to grow our patience, faith, and humility. You can't experience that until you have kids. You don't really know what that means until you go through these moments and you are stressed out and you're holding your eyebrows sideways and you're trying to figure something out. And then later that night, you're sitting down and you're reflecting on the day. And then you start reflecting on not just the explosion of the flour in the kitchen or whatever it was, but you start reflecting on the laughs of the children. You start reflecting upon the memory that was made. And how, even though messes happen, what can we do about it? We can clean it up. Right? We will gain a new level of patience, faith, and humility in parenting. Parenting reflects God's heart. As we love our children, we glimpse God's love for us. I don't know how to emphasize this enough. We talked about, from the moment we learn that a child has been conceived, we almost begin that, I love you. I haven't even met them yet. They're just in the womb. But all we can think about is how much we love them, or her. God loves us this way. He has loved us. He knew us before we were born. He formed us in the womb. He's loved us from that beginning, and He loves us through eternity. It's interesting to think that we may not be able to love through eternity. Once we're in heaven, some things change, I'm sure. But while we are here, that same kind of love, that same kind of willingness to sacrifice, to go through these painful things, to secure them and make sure they are safe and protected, to check on them, to let them know that we are going to be there when they need somebody to talk to. Is that not God for us? It is. He wants us to know He is there for us. We can reach out to Him. We can talk to Him. We can depend on Him. This is who we should be to our children. And this is the kind of love that it is. I think any of us would sacrifice ourselves for our children. I don't know how many times I've said with the health-related concerns that we go through, I'm like, I would take them all. Just give them all to me so my kid doesn't have to deal with this. Parenting gives us a legacy of faith. We talked about this, but it is so beautiful that we can pass down a genuine faith that lives on. I already told y'all a story about my grandpa, and I'll tell that story to my kids, and I hope that story goes on as long as it can. But when we talk about genuine faith to our children as they move forward, I think those are memories that are going to stick out. I think that's what's through their faith to their children and their children to their children, Lord willing. That came from somewhere. And Lord willing, that came from the parents, came from us to our kids. It's a beautiful thing that it keeps going. Faith has been around since the beginning of time. Here we are, 2025, still exercising it, right? Here's a thought question. We will talk about that. I think this is a good thought question. What qualities has God developed in you through the challenges of parenting?
I think a big one, patience, obviously, because when we were talking about if we wanted to have kids or not, that was one thing I was worried about, if I could handle that stuff. And like I've had like people comment to me about like, you've really changed since you became a parent. So I feel like it's that, and then the other one is letting go of perfectionism. Because I found my gut is in my head how it's supposed to go. And when you throw a kid in the mix, it doesn't go that way.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's something I've had to let go of because I used to have a really tight, I wanted things to be just so. Just that way.
Yeah, routine is not a word in parenting, hardly. It's hard to keep it that way. Anything else? Qualities God has developed in you through the challenge of parenting.
I think grace, goes up there where you're at. Like you said, expecting the perfectionism, realizing that I'm certainly not there. You know what I mean?
I think perspective is one for me. Just kind of being closed-minded to that things that make sense to me should probably make sense to others. And then you learn through your children that you're reminded of how they learn differently, they receive differently, they put things in motion differently. I think that's helped. That's something I've been taught for sure. Patience as well. And
Grace, yeah, I agree with that.
a lot of things. Here's a good one just for thought, talk about it. How does being a parent give you a deeper understanding of God's love for you? That can come into play when we go through some really dark moments or some struggling moments. If you think about how you love your children through all these things, what does that mean of you?
Yeah.
I think it's a good thought to consider. Confession and grace. 1 John 1:9. Parents who admit mistakes model humility. Again, we talked about this in our classes, but Brad had a couple good points on this. But just remembering that they need to know we don't always get it right, but we're always going to try. We're always going to keep going and do our best. But they need to see that humility. If we don't model it for them, they may not see it elsewhere. They may not know how to do that, how to be humble, how to talk humility, how to show humility. So we have to model it for them and explain that to them. God redeems our failures. Even wrong turns can become teaching moments. We talked about how we wouldn't always be perfect, but we can also point back to that through these bad decisions, we're able to come to better examples of life or communication that teaches them something lifelong that's valuable. But God plays a role in that. I don't have this in my notes, but you talk about praying for wisdom from God, talking about praying for guidance from God. Help me handle the situation. I did this wrong. I need to correct it. I need your help. Help me to figure this out. As we pray about these things and we figure out how to change that, that teaches kids something. Teaches them about reaching out to God, relying on Him, being patient, perseverance. Yeah, perseverance. So this is a total tangent, but yesterday I took my kids out to Eubank Park to throw some disc golf. There was a particular part of the course that I knew, I'm very familiar with. I knew that when the disc got thrown, if it made a bank left, it was going into some weeds. I knew it, but I didn't want to discourage them from trying. So I told Kylie, I love her to death, but she had a terrible throw. When she got up there, I said, throw it low and throw it easy, and she threw it. Sure as the world, it banked left into the weediest of weeds. Now, those who know me know I can't let that go. I didn't discipline her, but I went into the thorns, bad thorns, for a solid 30 minutes, just trying to crash them down and find my disc. And Kylie was just on the outside, just kind of watching. She said, "Can I just buy you a new disc?" I said, "This is perseverance, Kylie. I can't let this go." I wound up finding 3 discs. And I came out, I said, "You see what perseverance gets you?" Made me $30 just now. But perseverance is so important, that we don't give up. We show that bad decisions, wrong turns, can become teaching moments and have fruitful moments. Perseverance matters more than perfection. Philippians 3:12 through 14. It's not an option. We cannot give up. We cannot give up, but especially when we fall short. It can be easy to shut down on yourself, to kind of get in your head that, I'm never going to get this right no matter what I say, no matter what I do. It's never going to amount to anything. Every time I open my mouth, my kids just do whatever, shuts me down, makes me mad, I yell, whatever. If we're struggling and we gather ourselves, we need to reapproach it and give it our best. Our kids deserve that. It's what God asks of us, that we don't give up. And just remind them that, I may not handle this right every time, but I'm trying to do my best here, and I want to get you to where you need to be. And I'm working on me too, by the way. So, some thought questions, and then I'll go to the last slide when I get about 5 minutes. But think about how can admitting mistakes to your kids actually strengthen their trust and faith in you?
I try to think about this all the time. That things will happen. I'll fly off the handle or something over something probably trivial if I thought about it. And so I yell. And then, it may take me 10 minutes after the fact, half hour after the fact. But I have diligently tried, this is one of my growths, is to go back to them separately, together, and apologize deeply for that. And explain to them why I'm doing that. What is this doing? Because God doesn't like this. in mama, you know. This is why we take care of our things, this is why we do this way, you know, whatever. I'm sorry I yelled at you, I shouldn't have done that, should have handled it a different way. You know, I feel like the process is painstaking as maybe or humble as it makes me sometimes. It shows them the thought process of doing all these and taking accountability for things, taking responsibility for those things.
Great.
It shows them that we all mess up, but when you do mess up, this is how you
Mm.
And, you know, I've apologized a lot for flying off the handle or handling things wrong and, you know, telling them, you know, I promise I'll try to do better, but at the same time, you know, whenever you're told to do this is what I expect and stuff like that, so teaching moment for both sides.
You know, I've come across a couple times when I see the boys react to each other by screaming at each other. I'm like, man, that was me.
Yeah.
I heard it coming out of my mouth, and I'm so sorry. And I'll even apologize, you know, when it's them. I'm not even involved,
Yeah.
but I see the coming out. I'm like, guys, this is not how we handle things. I know in the past mom has done this. Let's work on this together.
I'll tell y'all something funny. Personal experience here. You know, we working with a male teenager. You know, some of these comebacks, they're really big on comebacks real quick. So we had some conversations a while back about, you know, if you don't know how to respond to something, if you feel like you're going to yell, if you feel like you're very upset, and what, you know, it's likely whatever's going to come out of your mouth is not good. Don't say it. Walk away from the conversation until you can gather yourself, right? Fast forward a little bit. One of these things come up. We're talking to him, and things are getting elevated, and all of a sudden he just turns around and starts walking off. What are you doing? Where are you going? You told me to walk away. So I'm like, how do we do?
I think it's good though, like, for us, I won't say who says it more. But, it's like, hey, you need to bring it down.
Yeah.
And, you know, that way, for future relationships, it'd be like, say the way
Yeah.
you do this. But
Yeah. You know, if you're, hopefully this is an encouragement to folks. If you find you are the one that tends to elevate your voice, your volume, your anger, this hardcore, that was me, several years parenting, probably up to the last 3 or 4 years. I would just get angry, right? Raise the voice, boom it down. After apologizing and talking to my kids several, and I mean repeatedly through those times, I have actually found that today I probably won't do that hardly ever. You can ask Daphne, I think she would say the same. There may be very, very like 1 in 1,000 times that I do that if something's really, really out of hand and I need some attention. But my point with this is if you keep working at it, I think you can get there where in those moments things are elevating. Not only are you cooling yourself down, you're helping your spouse out, you're helping the whole situation by just coming in and saying, hey, you know what, we need to chill just for a second. What do you think about this? Because you'll see where it's leading. So know that that's working. You're working on yourself. You're talking about that to your spouse, and you will go through moments where your spouses will get mad for doing that. Like if you do this or try to calm them down, she does that to me. I do that to her. It's a bit of that. Don't you calm me down. You can get through that. I promise. Not saying we're 100%, but I think I've seen improvement in our marriage and with our kids with that. Okay. Send off. Philippians 1:6, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Parenting is holy work. It is messy, tiring, and often humbling. But it is also one of the greatest ways we reflect God to the next generation. We will stumble, we will make the wrong call, but God's grace covers your parenting. What matters most is that your children see your faith is real through your love, your repentance, your perseverance, and your joy in Christ. May we all leave our children this legacy, that they know Christ and live for Him all their days. I don't think we could ask for anything more than that. I think our regular conversation with our kids, especially our older ones, as they look at professions, interest in life, I make sure that the comment is included. I don't care what you do, how much money you make, where you go, as long as there's one contingency, that you keep God first in your life. Whatever you do, wherever you go, that has to be priority. And I challenge myself, I challenge you to make sure that is part of your conversation with your kids. I have done everything for you that I can do. I have led you the best I can. I just pray that you're faithful the rest of your life, whatever happens. You may have something that you would add to that, take away from that. By all means, they're your kids. But I don't know if there's anything more important that they know Christ and live for Him all their days. And that's what this entire book has been about. Our leadership as parents, our guidance as parents, the challenges to ourselves, knowing that we are stewards, that our God has given these blessings, not these burdens, these blessings, that we raise them, that we challenge ourselves. We've been given the challenge to guide them. And it's so funny, you think about what are some of the things you've prayed for in life, some of the things you've prayed to improve on. I would bet you're going to find that the things you've prayed about, some of them at least, are coming to fruition through your children, through raising your children and being involved with your children. So either be careful what you pray for, or know how to be thankful that God has given you the blessings. All right, guys, it's been a great quarter. Appreciate y'all being here. I think we'll keep talking about this stuff because that's where we're at, our season of life right now. So thank you